Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Travel. My name is Gary Arndt, coming to you live from the nation of Catalonia, located between Spain and France. With me again is National Security Advisor Chris Christensen. High-level meetings this week at the White House. I realize you can't really talk about it, but you were asked to talk about bombing missions in Syria, I believe?
It's not true. I like to also to discredit the rumor that I was asked to be the ambassador for Estonia. Also not true. I don't know where that started.
No, it was Lithuanian, correct? People confuse those. That giggling voice you hear from the LA Times, Ms. Jen Leo. How are you doing, Jen?
Hey, welcome back together, everybody. And Chris, I want to hear as much as we possibly can about the DC trip. I've been waiting patiently.
I think we may have time to talk about that. And back on the show, I think he was on the show when we did our live show back in Athens, but I don't think he's actually been on it since we've done it online like this in a while. From On Travel from American Forces Radio, Mr. Paul Lasley. How are you doing, Paul?
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here, an honor, you might say, and especially now that Chris has been knighted by our government as one of the anointed ones.
We don't do the knighting. That's something else you're thinking of. And Gary, you were actually on Paul's show in Athens because we didn't do a live show in Athens.
Oh, that's right. Gary and I had lunch.
You remember being on the microphone with Paul, but Paul does a different radio show.
But you know, I had to buy Gary lunch. He wasn't just gonna. He just wasn't gonna sit here and allow me to talk intelligently or unintelligently with him without buying him lunch.
Well, you know, he's getting to be that way. I have to make sure there are no brown M&Ms backstage. You know.
Oh.
One of those
I was staying at a sex hotel when I was in Athens.
That's true.
I forgot about that.
Not a joke. I really did.
You have to tell us. Have to tell people why you were staying at a sex hotel, Gary.
Okay, it was not. I did not know it was a sex hotel. I booked it on Hotels.com. I thought it was simply an affordable hotel within walking distance of the convention center.
Well, you just didn't know that was the price per hour.
And it was kind of odd. You know, I've stayed in a lot of different hotels, so I didn't think too much. But there were a lot of mirrors in my room, and the sheets were not on the bed. They were folded up and put to the side. There were no sheets. It was a fitted sheet, but not a top sheet. And then as I'm walking down, so I took the elevator up in a very small elevator. I walked down, and I accidentally opened the door on the wrong floor, not on the lobby floor, but the floor above it. And there were 4 doors and two condom machines in the hallway. Now that is a high room to condom machine ratio. And it's the first time I'd ever seen such a thing outside of a bathroom. And then it dawned on me, it's like, oh, I know where I am. And the funny thing is, all the people I saw coming in seemed like normal tourists. You know, they all had suitcases and they were there for a weekend or something, and I didn't see anything fishy. But I talked to several locals, and they were like, "Yeah, you're staying at a sex hotel." So.
Okay, I cannot let this topic be put to bed. So we're.
Oh my!
Because I am just coming back from a hotel stay at a very nice resort in San Diego, and my girlfriends were staying in a room. And they heard very loud sexual activity in the room next to them. What do you do about that? Can you complain? Can you expect to get any kind of anything back from a what do hotel people do?
The traditional response is banging on the walls, I believe. But
really? I mean, I'm sure it's happened to all of you at some point in your lives. Do you just deal with it, or do you actually? I mean, it did, dampen. I mean, it upset their stay.
I think that if you embarrass the people next to you, it will do more than invoking anger. So if you have a laptop or some sort of musical source, see if you can find like cheesy porno music online and play it as loud as you can. Applaud when they're done. Do things like that. Maybe put something under their door, like a little note saying, could you do this next time at 7:30 so I can bring my friends over? Things like that that would embarrass and humiliate them more than banging on the wall. That's what I would do. Passive aggressiveness probably is the best strategy at something like this.
Well,
Safe.
Elizabeth and I were in a hotel in Seattle, of all things. Not, just a good hotel. And we heard screams. I mean, we are talking about serious screams. These were not sexually related screams, I don't think. You never know, of course. Anyway, so we actually did call the front desk, and I said, and the response was, "We know the police are on their way." Now, so we're trying to figure out just whether we should be, crouching under our bed, crouching in the bathroom where the bullets won't, come into the room or something. I have no idea. But then everything went quiet, and we did hear the police knocking on the door, and after that there was just no more noise. So I have no idea. But sex would probably be much more preferable to blood-curdling screams from somebody.
Paul.
I mean,
wow.
So I don't know exactly how to actually say. I would think a good hotel would probably at least call the room. I think. But the kind of hotel where, the kind of hotel where Gary was staying, now, I don't think anything
They charge extra.
They'll charge extra.
I'm usually the one who, after the post-production, ends up naming the episodes. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but
you're going to be thinking about it in our entire recording, Chris.
So why don't we get to some news stories before the show gets too far off track?
Too late.
This, we talk about Wi-Fi and internet connectivity a lot on the show. This was a good one. Singapore Airlines passenger claims he was billed $1,500, or it's about $1,100 US, for using the in-flight Wi-Fi service during a long-haul flight, which was actually more than the price of the ticket.
Wow.
And you hear about these things occasionally happening with roaming charges for cell phones. This is the first time I've actually heard something like this happening with Wi-Fi. And I'll be honest, the Wi-Fi that I've used on planes, I've never seen a system where this could even be possible.
Yeah, no, I've never seen something that had a per megabyte or per bit charge or whatever this was.
It's usually time.
And when we say the passenger claimed, but the airline has responded to this and said, well, he had plenty of warning. We gave them all the information. So the airline hasn't denied it, as far as I have heard. So he really was billed that much, and they're saying, hey, that's our fees. But he was saying he was just downloading emails or something like that, although it could easily be that his laptop had all sorts of background processes, like, backup to the web or something like that. And if you're on something that is metered per megabyte and you happen to be doing something like that, you can get slapped with a pretty heavy bill.
I had that happen to me this year. I had a Verizon roaming plan. Mm-hmm. And there was like 100 countries that it applies in. South Africa was one. I was in Lesotho, Swaziland, and had no problems. I flew to Mozambique, and within minutes of landing, like 5 minutes, I got a warning saying I had racked up $500 worth of data. And the only thing that happened was background data from the apps on my phone. So you know how just like mail and social media apps and things like that just do stuff in the background? That's the only thing that happened. Because the price per megabyte is so ridiculous, it takes only a very small amount of data and a very small amount of time to reach those ridiculous levels.
I got a bill for $175 for Greece, and I think I probably sent like 5 texts. So I don't know what else it was. Maybe it's exactly what you experienced, Gary.
You have to be real careful with that. Especially, actually, the one thing that trips up a lot of people is that when they use a MiFi device, because often, for instance, I will have my phone set to only use these kind of data services when you're on Wi-Fi. Don't use them on my data plan. So I won't download podcasts and things like that. The apps are a lot of them are smart enough to know that. But if you're talking to a MiFi device, for instance, which is Wi-Fi, and yet you're getting charged at cellular rates, that's a great way to get tricked because your phone is thinking Wi-Fi is free. So, and that is
that's a great.
What do you mean, Chris? What do you mean?
So for instance, on my phone, I use Downcast for playing this podcast and other podcasts, for instance. And it has a setting that is don't download podcasts, which are large files, when you're on data services. Only do it when you're connected to Wi-Fi, because usually that is work or home where Wi-Fi is free.
Okay.
But if your Wi-Fi is coming through something that is a cellular system, like if you're using a MiFi device, which converts cellular into Wi-Fi.
How do you turn it off? How do you turn it off then?
At that point, you just need to be really aware of what services you're doing, either not running certain applications. It gets trickier at that point.
Because I turn off my cellular data and my roaming, and I try to turn off as many push notifications as I can. But still, when I turned on my cellular so that I could text somebody, which you think is like 50 cents to $1.50 or something like
50
that.
cents is usually what I expect.
Yeah. Maybe turning on that cellular data for whatever that time was allowed something to come through. I don't know.
Well, I am happy to report that this week I finally got out of my Verizon contract. I completely...
That was the one you really loved when you got into, right, Gary?
I was going to say the same thing, Chris. I remember him raving about it. Raving.
At the time, they were, but what T-Mobile has done has completely blown every U.S. carrier out of the water in terms of international data. And we'll talk about it a bit more when we get to my picks of the week, because I'll explain why and how I got out of my Verizon account. Another news story, I don't think we've recorded since the Thanksgiving holidays, but on November 30th at Midway Airport in Chicago, there was a security line that stretched over 1 mile at Midway Airport. And needless to say, a lot of travelers were kind of upset. I've seen some pretty long lines. I think the longest I've seen was probably really early in the morning once in L.A. I saw a line that was but it wasn't a mile. I mean, it wasn't like that.
Terminal 1 can go for 2 or 3 blocks, or 2 blocks, let's say, not for a mile, though. But it's Terminal 1 is the worst terminal at LAX, no question.
I've flown December 23rd through JFK, and we had some pretty horrendous lines, both at security, but also for the people who were checking luggage. They had already gone through a pretty horrendous line that was taking at least an hour just to check in your luggage. I was supposed to fly that weekend because I worked in Boston that week, and I looked to try and fly out on Sunday, and all the fares were so expensive, and then I realized, it's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Better not fly. Let's just skip the airports. So I flew that Monday instead.
It's cheaper to stay in a hotel.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
And it's not as fun because there's a lot of amateurs flying during Thanksgiving break and Christmas.
You know, considering the name of your podcast, I don't really think you should be using that term in a derogatory sense. Just saying.
You know what? That coming back from T-Bex in Athens, I always sit, in coach. When I would love to sit in business, but I tend to sit in coach 90% of the time, and I always sit in the center section on an aisle because typically, if there's going to be an empty seat or something, there will be. And guess what? Coming back from Athens through Istanbul, I had an empty seat next to me. It was the closest thing to first class I've been in years. And this was just an empty seat in coach.
Paul, explain this empty seat theory to me. What do you mean in the middle of the plane?
Okay. On long-haul flights, which are typically wide bodies, they will have 2 or 3 people on each side of the plane, and then there will be 3 to 5 people in the center. It just depends on how narrow the seats are. I always try and get an aisle seat in the center section because I can, first of all, you tend not to have as many people climbing over you, but you never know.
And is that the middle of the plane, like where the wings would be?
Well, I don't much care about that.
Just in between the 2 aisles, you say wide body.
Yeah.
Okay.
In that center section, and I've always thought that was the best place to be. It's a little rougher if you're sitting towards the tail. There's no question about that. The only proviso is do not sit near a restroom.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable.
Yikes.
Let's do one final story. The London Telegraph had a really interesting feature where they took comments from TripAdvisor from some of the most famous places in the world, negative comments, and they're kind of hilarious. So for the Grand Canyon, nothing special. I drove 9 hours to get here. It was worth a 2-hour drive, but no more than a 2-hour drive. The Eiffel Tower, more like awful tower. Angkor Wat, welcome to Scambodia. Machu Picchu, not worth the effort. Great Wall of China, they had fog. It was a waste of my money.
My God.
Statue of
Taj
Liberty.
Mahal, do not visit. You are better off watching it on the net.
Oh my God.
Statue of Liberty. It's just a statue. I don't know what the big deal is. What is the most overrated experience? Some place you've been that's kind of a well-known attraction that you went and you were just like, this is not that big of a deal. You just weren't impressed. There's got to be something. For me, it was the Dead Sea. I like the Dead Sea area, but floating in the Dead Sea, highly overrated because you sit there awkwardly.
It is
you
very
can't swim
odd.
really.
Yeah.
And if there's any cut or anything on your body, you're going to be in horrible pain. I picked up a rock and it slipped out of my hand. A drop of water splashed and hit my eye, and I couldn't see for 5 minutes because it's so salty. At the end I was like, what was the point? This is not that great. It's interesting, from a nature standpoint, the sea, but the actual act of being in it, I thought was just really kind of overrated.
I would share that one. And I had hiked up Wadi Mujib, up a slot canyon just before I was floating in the Red Sea, so I had nicks and scrapes and cuts all over my legs.
Ooh. I did that too, and that scared the hell out of me, quite frankly. I really felt that was dangerous, climbing up several waterfalls. Paul, anything you've seen that just kind of...
Well, actually, Las Vegas, just everything in Las Vegas, I think is the most overrated place ever.
You just killed Leo on the show.
That's it.
Oh, there's so many of you
Her
out
health
there,
wasn't really
Paul.
good here anyway, and you just killed her off.
Oh, Jen, do you love Las Vegas?
I do. I never want to live there again in my life, but I absolutely love visiting. It's so much fun for me.
Well, Elizabeth and I were broadcasting from National Association of Broadcasters one year, and we were on the air, and I said to Elizabeth, what do you think of Las Vegas? She said, it's like living in a dirty ashtray.
If you are living there, that's true. But
Is that right? Wow.
But I positively, you can trust me, Paul.
I will.
If I could take you to Vegas, I could show you something that you and Elizabeth could appreciate, just you. What I like to do is I like to find what is interesting to people, whether that's nature or whether it's museum, like whatever it is, I could find something that's interesting to you and take you there. And maybe you wouldn't love it, but you would go, oh, that was my one pocket. That was my one corner of Vegas that I could appreciate. Because
cool.
not everybody's a gambler. Not everybody's, going to go to a show. But there are places where people could enjoy.
I used to be a debate coach, and one of my former students is a communications director now for a congressman in Vegas, and he lives there when he's not in Washington. And he described it as living in Mogadishu.
I don't even know what that means.
That's like the city in Somalia. That it's just an absolute cultural wasteland that he just could not stand it. That was living there, and I think it's a very different experience living there versus visiting.
Yeah, probably
because you're seeing a completely different part of the city when you live there.
I have some friends who live there and love it. They're really involved in some of the charitable activities there and things. And I think they see a different part of it than I see. It's not my favorite place.
In Vegas or Mogadishu?
We don't
Both.
know as many people who live in Mogadishu, as it turns out. We had there's a family story of one of the cousins of my father who apparently visited the Grand Canyon, got there, looked in, and said, "Well, you can't grow corn there," and that was his
Okay.
whole
So can I-
impression of the Grand Canyon.
I have a totally
Well-
off-topic thing to mention, and it's so near and dear to my heart. Do you guys know Tim Cahill? He's a very,
Yes.
very accomplished travel writer. He had a heart attack in the Grand Canyon this week and survived thanks to the team that he was with who resuscitated him. And it was just absolutely shocking to first read this on Twitter and then read his account on Facebook. I'm just so thankful that he's alive. He's the reason why I even got interested in travel writing at all, and I'm happy to know him and happy to hear that he's alive.
Yeah, he's a great writer. Elizabeth sent him a note when she heard about this, and he's actually, I think, written for her. So it was really a tragedy, but a good one. Well, at least the ending is good. Something that's really interesting is an organization called the National Outdoor Leadership Schools, and they have serious wilderness survival skills sets. And the story, if you want to read something like that, these group that was in Alaska that was attacked by a grizzly is a remarkable story, because the people that lived because they knew exactly what to do in an absolutely horrific situation. And I think some of these teams that do go out, I think it's worth checking out just exactly what their credentials are. What your guide is capable of doing, or what your friends are, if nothing else, because things can happen out there.
And I hadn't heard any about this until just now. So from Paul's segue, I'm assuming he was attacked by a grizzly bear, but that could be wrong. He was in the canyon doing the hiking, or what was his story?
No grizzlies in the Grand Canyon. I was digressing. Sorry.
If you give me a second, keep talking amongst yourself. I'll read his account. He was actually river rafting.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Let me just go look it up. It's worth. I definitely want to read it to you. So just talk a few more things, and I will get him up on my Facebook.
It is surprising how remote the river is in the Grand Canyon. I mean, it is not an easy thing to get down to. The reason why the river rafting trips in the Grand Canyon all tend to be at least a week is that there's not a lot of easy places to get out.
Okay, so I'm on his Facebook page. I don't know who to believe. It says that he did not have a heart attack. He drowned. So let me read you his. Oh gosh, we got to get through all these messages to find what he said. How do I find what he said?
Do you want us to continue on while you do your research there?
Well, I could digress just very briefly with a very short story, which is true. I was talking to a Grand Canyon guide who, and you always ask him what the interesting things happen to them on trips. He says, "Oh, that's easy." He says, "Last year I took a man and his daughter down the Grand Canyon. The first night, he came up to me and he said, 'Where's the hotel?'" And he said, "You would be surprised how often that happens. Not frequently, obviously, but it does happen. People don't read the brochures, I think. I don't know.
Okay. Here's the account from Tim Cahill's Facebook page, Grand Canyon event, from my eyes. Tossed out of the boat in Lava Falls, the biggest rapid. At the bottom, got hold of boat, then ducked under to avoid getting crushed as the two of the 2,000-pound rafts collided. Trapped under rafts and breathed in a lot of the Colorado River. Got to the surface and was dragged into a raft. Went to the sandy bank. I walked a few steps, sat down, things went black. Up top, what my boatmate saw was that I was turning blue, that I had stopped breathing, and about 30 seconds later I had no pulse. Pretty much dead, in other words. CPR was started. Justin Kleber did 30-second compressions. Odie Kupfer gave 2 breaths. After 7 rounds of this, about 3.5 to 4 minutes, I woke up, saw a bunch of people way too close to me, and started fighting. I excused myself by saying that moments before I was fighting for my life. Also, while I was out, I did not see a bright light, someone beckoning to me, or the pearly gates. Just nothing between when I went down and when I woke up. Anyway, that is hardly any way to express my gratitude to all the people on that trip. Justin and Steve saved my life. The whole group saved my life. My gratitude is unbounded. All the docs I saw afterwards said I was very lucky to have the group of people with me. One of my docs called this resuscitation a near miracle. So I'm going to think of my boating party, formerly known as the Harry Butler Party, as the Colorado River Miracle Team.
Wow.
So I don't. When you're, what is that? Is that a heart attack, or is that?
No, that's
No,
that-
he was drowned. He was
Okay.
drowning. Yeah.
All right.
I'm guessing his lungs were probably filled with water or something.
right. Yeah.
Gas.
Wow.
Oh, he even replied
suppose
on my
in
thing
some
I had a
ways-
heart attack.
Yeah, I mean, this is not
Cardi-
good, but I
So
suppose.
he said it's a cardiac arrest, but not a heart attack.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess if your lungs are full of water, you're
As you know, Jen,
Heart's
when
gonna
your
stop.
lungs are full of fluid, it is hard to breathe.
wow.
So, and when they're completely full of water, then that's impossible.
That is a miracle. Great.
Well, speaking of miracles, Chris, you went to the White House this week.
How is he going to transition from that one? Segue. Yeah, I was there for the rather long-winded travel. Let me get the whole title of it. But it was a travel blogger summit with members of the White House with the Obama administration, trying to get out the word about why people should study abroad. So what was it called? It was the Travel Blogger Summit on Global Citizenship and Study Abroad. We had a number of members of the travel blogging community there, some members of the travel writing community, Pauline Fromer, Paula from Yahoo.com, Samantha Brown from Travel Channel, and then we had the people from the National Security Council, the Secretary of State's office, as well as the Chief of Staff of the White House and the First Lady's Chief of Staff, the Commerce Secretary, and the head of the Peace Corps were also there, talking about study abroad and also service abroad. And basically, the bottom line, if I had to summarize the 3 hours we spent in policy discussions, it was basically, it's good for you, it's good for the country, and the government wants to help you do it.
Well, actually, I think it is, and I applaud that no end. Our mission with American Forces Radio is simply to promote travel among Americans stationed abroad. And everybody instantly thinks of troops in the field, but in reality, it's much more civilian employees, scientists, diplomats, just enormous numbers of people overseas. And our goal is to get them to travel. Strangely enough, it's not easy. Some just travel constantly, but a large chunk of them just stay put.
Well, Pauline Fromer, who was there, her father, Arthur Fromer, a well-known travel writer, started with the brochure for GIs at the end of World War II.
I didn't know
basically
that.
how to travel. His first edition of the book, Travel Europe on $5 a day, was put out through as a pamphlet for GIs overseas.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be able to do that and actually encourage travel. I certainly would not equate my impact on the world of travel to be equal to Arthur Fromer's, but it is remarkable how travel can benefit the world and benefit individuals.
One of the stories that they told that I liked was they were talking about a study abroad program in Malaysia. And someone was telling a member of the staff for the Security Council, National Security Council, that until I met these American students, when I thought of America, all I thought of were drones and the war in the Middle East. Basically, that was America. That was the face of America to him until he met people from America. And so they were really saying that travel abroad, especially study abroad, where you actually have a chance to meet people, stay with people, get to really know people, study or service abroad that are more than just a week, something that's a semester or a year or 2 years in the Peace Corps or something, really broadens America's diplomacy in ways that diplomats can never do it.
No, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. And I think it's more than just study abroad. I think it's, hopefully if people can travel when they're younger, they'll do it when they're older.
Hmm.
And I think even probably better than taking a semester while you're in school is to take a year or half a year before you go to school. Because I think if more people did that, there's a lot of people that go to college and they confuse being away from home with being at school. And they party a lot, and they don't know why they're there, and they kind of try to get everything out of their system all at the same time they should be studying. And I say get that out of your system in Thailand. It's a lot cheaper, and then go back to school, and you'll probably have a better idea of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me.
Good advice, actually.
I'm trying to schedule the head of the Peace Corps program, her family has sent 4 generations of people to the Peace Corps. We're trying to schedule to get her on Amateur Traveler to come on and talk about volunteer travel for 45 minutes or so, because we try and do a volunteer travel episode every year or two on the show. So it looks like we're going to be able to arrange that. So that would be good.
Well, anything else about your Washington experience?
We got to go to the White House too. We talk about being invited to the White House. We were really next door in the executive office buildings, but we did also get to enjoy the prettily decorated and holiday Christmas trees and everything, all of the White House, along with all the tour that anybody could do.
Chris, where did they put you up? What were the after parties like?
They did not put us up. So
these are
your tax dollars at work,
right?
So they did arrange. So the idea for this actually came from Hosteling International. They were pitching some things to the White House, and it turned into this. And so they offered, I think 30 of the travel bloggers stayed in the hostel. I actually stayed in my daughter's apartment because she lives in easy commuting range from Alexandria, walking to the metro. But yeah, they put some people up in the hostels there for Hosteling International, and then there were other sponsors as well. So we met for breakfast at the W. We went to the National Press Club, sponsored by Hosteling International, and then we went to the Newseum. I don't know if you've seen the Newseum, but it's a museum right on the mall dedicated to news.
Absolutely, it's great.
I have to go back because we did the party there, and I was thinking I would get to see it, but really I need to go back and see the museum. My daughter loves it.
I have been to the old museum.
His old museum?
Yeah.
Who were all the speakers? I know Robert Reed spoke, but I didn't hear what he said. I didn't get to follow the live feed, but who were all the speakers?
Well, in addition to the people who were there from, I have a post on my website which lists everybody who spoke. If you're interested,
Great.
If you go to the website amateurtraveler.com and look for the White House wants you to travel to study abroad. But from the private sector, they had Patrick Dowd of the Millennial Trains Project and Daniela Heist, the vice president of External Affairs for the Institute of International Travel, Paula Froelich, Amex Montoya from the Gilman Scholarship Program, or somebody who's an alumni of that program. So that's a program that is meant to get people who are not rich white kids to study abroad. Basically, what they want to see happen is a broadening of who goes abroad, and then also a broadening of destinations. Not everybody going to France and Italy and England, for instance, and Spain, which I think are the top 4, but also going to, not to Mogadishu, but to Ghana or someplace like that. Robert Reed, Samantha Brown, Robin Goldberg from the Minerva Project, who was formerly also at Lonely Planet when Robert was there. James Howard from iHeartRadio, and then Don Wildman, who's also a host on the Travel Channel. So that was the non-governmental speakers who were up there. A lot of that was panel discussion.
What does someone who does a show about ghosts and someone from iHeartRadio have to do with study abroad?
Well, actually, Don Wildman, who's doing the show on Travel Channel right now, is doing a show on museums.
They're probably looking for star quality or names or celebrity kind of things, I would think. I don't know.
And how does one pitch something
it's interesting. Almost everybody who was speaking and almost everybody who was attending, I think with me being almost the only one who wasn't, studied abroad. I did not study abroad. I was busy getting married my junior year of college when everybody was usually doing that. But my daughter studied abroad. So they talked about, trying to convince your parents that study abroad was not going to kill you and was not a waste of your time and money. A lot of people could relate to those sort of comments that, nobody understood why I wanted to study abroad and thought it was just a go play abroad sort of thing. So.
Very good.
Very cool.
And Paul, what's new with you?
Well, I do 10 shows a week, and there's not a lot new for me. I sit here staring at my computer all day. But there's what we've been doing is a series of Christmas shows, and it's been remarkable the feedback we've gotten. And the interesting thing is we actually did something different this year where we talked to service people around, what their experiences were. And I got to tell you, some of it is just fascinating because these people are, Americans. They're not officers. They don't make a lot of money. They are not living high on the hog, living in, say, a base in Turkey or something like that. Wonderful story. One of them said that they wanted to get a Christmas tree, and he and his wife are living on the base, and they couldn't afford a Christmas tree. So this charity, some non-governmental group, got together and sent this base hundreds of Christmas trees. The only problem was they were 12 feet tall, and base housing was like 8 feet. And so they cut them in half and retrimmed them to make them look like Christmas trees. So the tops look like Christmas trees, the bottom ones they trimmed. And I thought that was just a really neat story. So the other thing is we've been cruising a bit and went to the inaugural of the Regal Princess in Fort Lauderdale. And the amazing thing is they got all of the people together who were on the original Love Boat show. And yes, they're alive. And headed by Gavin MacLeod, of course, who actually is a friend. And it was remarkable to listen to these people talk. And, of course, the thrill for me was I got to interview Jack Jones, who sang the original thing, but is probably one of the great singers and interpreters of the Great American Songbook, and doesn't get the recognition I think he deserves. But it was just fun. But the thing that stood out for me is that Princess is actually doing really good food in the Lido buffets. They always talk about the extra charge restaurants and things like that. Princess has not always done great food, but suddenly they've really come to the table, as it were, and I was quite surprised. At least on the newer ships with the new designs and this sort of thing, it is remarkable.
I've never been on a lot of cruises, but I've always been rather impressed with the food. Granted, my standards are very low. I had a microwave hamburger today, but
microwave hamburger
from a vending machine. That was my dinner.
I've never done that.
There's really no good reason to do that, Paul. Yeah.
It's a whole other experience. Gary, traveling with you is an entry into another world. It truly is.
Yeah, so's the gateway to hell, though, so it's not necessarily a good thing. Well, if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, you want to start talking about our picks for the week? I take it by your silence. That means you really have nothing else to talk about. I'll actually start things out. I have two things that I'm going to recommend. So the first, I mentioned earlier that I left Verizon this week, and so I was out. I'm doing some work with the a photography assignment for the Costa Brava Tourism. So a couple of days a week, I'm going out and doing photo shoots. And I was supposed to go to a national park that was on the border of the Girona province and the Barcelona province. I got fogged in, couldn't see anything. So I kind of threw in the towel early, and I was near Barcelona, so I was like, I'll go to Barcelona. And so while I was there, I picked up a brand new iPhone 6 Plus, which is absolutely amazing. It has taken a while for me to adjust to a phone this size, because the iPhone 6 Plus is significantly larger than an iPhone 5. And to give you an idea, here is, well, for those of you listening, this ain't going to work, but if you're watching it, the iPhone 6 Plus compared to the iPhone 5, the iPhone 5 seems like a toy when I hold it now compared to this. And the screen on this is absolutely gorgeous. Not only the size, but the resolution. And doing photography, the camera's much better, and looking at photos, this is actually a big enough screen where I can read on it. That's not been true before. So I can use the Kindle app on here, which I never really did on my phone previously. And I'm probably even going to get rid of, I carry an iPad with me that I'll probably get rid of that. So having a slightly bigger phone, I can get rid of an iPad, I can get rid of my Kindle, and condense it down. So that's the thing. And I also set it up with the Apple Pay. So I have my credit cards on the phone, so you can use the near-field communication to just touch with stuff. Haven't done it yet, but what I've noticed is when I put my credit cards in, did the confirmations through the credit card provider, when a payment is done on your credit card, it gives you a pop-up notification in your iPhone. So I have several reoccurring payments for like Spotify and things like that. And so when those payments go through, I'm instantly notified on my phone anytime a payment goes through, which is really a very slick service. So that will be my first pick this week, is the iPhone 6 Plus. My other pick, so today for lunch, I went out with Rick Calvert, who's the CEO of TBEX and New Media Expo. He's in Girona this week doing a site visit because this is where TBEX Europe is going to be. And Jaume Marin, who's the head of the tourism here, and I was invited to go to lunch with those guys. And this time of year, I think it's around December, it's a 2-month period, there is a special type of onion which is harvested in Catalonia. And it's called calots, I think that's the name of it. And it's a very large, it doesn't even look like an onion, it looks like bok choy. And they roast it kind of like you would roast corn on the cob. And it's really long, and you dip it in the sauce, and then you kind of hold it over your head, and you dip it in kind of like you were eating a strand of spaghetti with your fingers. Really a unique experience. It actually tasted really good. They serve it traditionally in a roof tile, like a half-pipe clay roof tile, and that's what they put it in. And it was a really neat experience, and it's something that they really only do in Catalonia and only in this time of the year. So if you're listening to this show later, it's mid-December right now, and this is kind of the peak time for doing it. So if you're ever in this area around, December, definitely check it out.
Gary, I think this is the first time I've heard you be excited about something food-related since you had that special view in Toronto. Remember when you had that special chef preparing you an amazing breakfast?
Did you not just hear about my vending machine hamburger?
Were you not paying attention to the hamburger? Yeah.
Did you not see excitement in my voice?
I don't know. This one struck a chord with me. This one sounded really great.
It's so seldom that I didn't even know about this morning, right? And they invited me and they told me about it, and it tasted good. It was a unique experience, the way you eat it, the way it's presented, and I just had never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, no, I like it. Did you take pictures?
I did, and there's one of me actually eating it where you hold it up, like this. But I just never heard of it, and it was a really unique thing, and you don't come across things like that very often. So, even though I'm here for a couple of months, it was nice to be able to see it. Because the other Catalonian dish, which is kind of the staple, is called pa amb tomate, which is nothing more than bread and tomato. Not really exciting. They just take a small cherry tomato and rub it all over the bread, and that's their thing. But this was kind of really different, and I think really more, something which is really unique to the region more than bread and tomato.
Or microwave hamburgers, apparently.
Yes, which is the other real traditional Catalonian dish. Chris, you got anything? I don't think you can top an iPhone 6 Plus, but...
Well, actually, see, I've got an iPhone 6, and I'm heading in the other direction. If they came out with the smaller phone, more of the 5S, but with the updated cameras and stuff, I would probably go back. I find the 6 to be a bit too big for my hand. I just don't have a
Really,
firm
the
grip on it.
plain
Yeah.
6. So, Chris,
Yeah.
you must be on the phone a lot. I've tried hard to get the 6 Plus. I've tried twice now, and I took pictures with the 6 Plus and 6, and the whatever the anti-shake thing is on the 6
Mhm.
Plus looks fantastic for me. And my iPad's going out, so I'm with Gary. I can't wait to get the 6 Plus, but I don't make phone calls. I just don't talk on the phone that much. I'm more of a web browser girl. And
I don't necessarily talk on the phone a lot, but I always have an earbud in my ear, always listening to podcasts, and I tend to use it more as an audio device than I do for looking at the screen. I actually like traveling with the iPad Mini and having a bigger screen when I actually want to read or do videos or play games or things like that. So yeah, I'm just finding that I don't have a firm grip on it, and I have already dropped it a few times because it's just a little too big. I have small hands too, so that's part of my problem. Is I just really don't.
What are you talking about? You're a giant.
I am a giant. I have little hands for somebody my size.
But that's the 6.
That's the 6. I didn't even get the Plus.
And the 6 Plus is even bigger.
Too big for me. Yeah.
It did take me about 48 hours to kind of adjust to having something of a bigger size. So it does take a little bit of time because you're not used to it. But
Where do
now
you
that
hold
I'm
it,
used to
Gary?
it,
Well, I've had it for more than a month, and I still find it too big.
I just, I put it in my pocket. Now I just hold it. I'm just used to it now. It's just.
I also found it too thin in the sense that they're really obsessed with making it thin, and I would say make it twice as thick and give me more battery life.
Well,
I would agree. I think that there's no reason to be any thinner. I don't think they gain.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I think if they were to add a millimeter and have that be all battery, they'd be better off. I don't think anybody would really care of a tiny bit more width.
Well, and I used to have a Mophie juice pack on the back of my 5, and they just don't sell them yet. So I literally exchanged, thinness for twice as much battery life, and I will do that again if I get that option with the 6. So my pick, though, is actually related to the White House. One of the interesting surprises that happened at the White House is the sponsor of the last event at Newseum was Turkish Airlines, and they were planning on having a raffle for 10 of us to go to Istanbul with them. I did not know. They apparently fly to more countries than any other airlines. This is what they claim. I had not realized that.
They fly to Mogadishu.
Yeah, but I do not know if they fly to Mogadishu.
No, they do. They have 3 flights a
really?
week. Yes.
Wow.
Why do I know that? I'll go on that on another show sometime.
But they changed their mind at the last minute, and they said they're going to send all 100 travel bloggers who went to Istanbul.
How nice.
And sometime here in the next 6 months. And Istanbul is my other pick. We haven't talked about it because the last time I went was longer ago than I think we have done this show, but I loved Istanbul. It has often been the answer to my question of, what's your favorite place to go to? Just because so much history, the food was good, the people were interesting. So I really, really enjoy Istanbul. I don't know for sure that I'll be able to, go with them on this trip because there's only so much time in the year and I've got a lot of things planned. But I absolutely would love to get back to Istanbul. I'd love to get back there and take Joan, who did not travel with me last time, get out to, to Hagia Sophia, but also get out to like St. Sevier and Kora and the walls of Theodosius and, explore the Istiklal Caddesi. And I just love the whole place.
Chris, I'm envisioning that this was like an Oprah moment where they were like,
very much like
you get a ticket, and you get a ticket, and you get a ticket. Did they make you reach under your chair? Where they
look under your chairs. That's.
That
was actually lunch where we had to look under our chairs to see if we won from Hostel International. Apparently, in New York, they have a hostel, and on the penthouse, they have a suite that they don't sell normally, and they were giving out a number of tickets, 3 or 4 tickets to people to stay in the penthouse at their hostel in New York. And
nice.
I did not want one.
I will certainly second what you say about Istanbul. I think it's a fantastic city, and there's a lot of history, and it's a lot of history that a lot of people, especially Americans, don't know about. Neither the Byzantine Empire nor the Ottoman Empire gets a whole lot of play in history class. Mm-hmm. And between the two of them, you're looking at almost 2,000 years of history. Certainly that much if you want to go back to the Greeks and the Byzantium. That's kind of where the name came from. So
Right.
it was originally the name of the city before it was Constantinople, before it was Istanbul. So,
Well, and that's even before you throw in, Sultan Ahmet and the conquerors and all that other stuff. So lots of history there.
just as an aside, if you ever
Good
play
food,
games
too.
like Age of Empires, where you can pick a civilization,
Right.
the Byzantines, their special civilization bonus is always walls, and the Turks are always gunpowder. In the end, the gunpowder won. Jen, you got to pick for us this week.
I do. It's brand new. I think it started just this week. But now you can use your American Express points to buy $100 e-gift cards through Airbnb. So if you are a last-minute shopper and you are short on cash but high on points, 10,000 points with American Express membership rewards can get you a $100 e-gift card.
Wow.
So in checking this out this week, it's in the reward type hotel gift card. In checking this out, I found out that not only can you do Airbnb, which is brand new, but for Vegas lovers, you can also get stays at the Aria, Bellagio, and Mandalay Bay, MGM, and just in general, if you like to stay at hotel chains, they have them at they have e-gift cards for the Hyatt, Best Western, Marriott, even the Ritz-Carlton. So,
And Paul, when she says if you're a Vegas lover, she was talking to you.
yes.
Yeah, I knew that. It was a pointed remark there.
Very
I got
specifically.
that.
So for you, Paul, a non-Vegas stay, someone can gift you an e-gift card for the Ritz-Carlton for only 12,000 points.
Wow.
And all the points start at 6,000 points for a Hyatt card and a Best Western card for $50.
So I could judge my friend's devotion to me by the gift cards that I get. Now there's an interesting idea. Can I point out my pick of the week is culinary, just along with Gary's.
As long as it is not a microwave hamburger, we are okay with
It
that.
is definitely not, and I don't want to blow Gary's cover here as a egalitarian culinarian, but he and I share a love. How's that? Egalitarian culinarian. He and I share a love and passion for Iberico. And Iberico is a ham that comes from a black-footed pig, which eats acorns. Thank you. And Iberico is not only wildly expensive, a single leg can cost over $1,000, but the ham is, well, I'm going to borrow Gary's description that he told me on the air. It is the best meat on earth. So
Wow.
Iberico ham it is. It truly is. And to my friends who eat kosher, I think God would forgive you. I truly believe that. It is
So you're
remarkable.
saying a leg of ham will cost you an arm and a leg.
Thank you.
But
Yeah, and then, oh gosh, you guys are closet comedians, I think. But you make me laugh. So at any rate, the other thing is, it's Christmas time. There is a thing in Italy called panettone, and panettone is a bread baked for Christmas time. And I will tell you that most panettone that you find in the U.S. just doesn't live up to the name. But I have found here in Los Angeles an outlet for Loisan, which is Loisin, a bakery in the Venezia, makes the best panettone on earth, and I can buy it here in Los Angeles. I am truly astounded by that.
And is it getting me in trouble if I tell you I really don't like Jamón Ibérico? Just not my favorite. Rather have a Virginia ham.
Well, Gary and I will.
Really, Chris?
Gary and I will have your portion.
You're welcome to it.
so sad that this is Chris's last show on This Week in Travel.
As I recall, I'm the one who controls the feed, Gary. So good luck with it.
Yeah, but I got the domain.
Yeah, nobody goes there.
We were walking around last night, Rick Calvert and me, and we walked past a store here in Girona that specialized in Jamón Ibérico. And for those of you who've not seen it, when it's served in bars, which it's frequently, there are special racks. It is literally, it's not removed from the bone, and it is literally the whole leg with the hoof still attached is how they serve it. And we looked into, could this get shipped back to the United States? And the answer was no. I'm sure it can be done, but it would probably be pretty costly and a pain. But and so if you go to a bar and order it, they literally take this big rack and they take a knife and they just shave off a very thin slice, which is how it's served. And it's actually not cooked. I think it's just dried for like 2 years. It's aged for an incredibly long time, and that's how it's served. It's fantastic.
It is wonderful.
My most memorable Iberico ham story was I was actually at a cafe in London, and it was on a sandwich with English Stilton blue cheese on very thick homemade whitish bread with a red onion pepper jelly. And it was
great,
amazing.
except for the jamon iberico in that sandwich.
Well, so Chris, you're outnumbered 3-2 here. You realize that?
Clearly 3-2.
And I'm hanging out with very educated people. I am really impressed. Thank you for inviting me.
But hey, you know, your honey baked ham with the pineapples with the toothpicks in it, I'm sure that's great.
you can't beat that. Cannot beat that.
Yeah. And on a related note,
I should point out, Gary, that you could also do a sous vide hamburger, and you can actually get recipes for doing that in the crock pot now, so you don't even have to buy the fancy sous vide machine instead of the microwave, you know.
Well, if we were talking about the best chicken in the world, Chris would be like, yeah, that's great. I like chicken McNuggets. That's my favorite.
And we're done. With chicken McNuggets. Oh, I've got one more tip. I've got one more tip, Gary, real quick.
All right.
So, slumming it with my iPhone 4S until I get the 6 Plus, I accidentally dropped it in the toilet this week. I'm not done yet. Okay, I'll be right back. So I dropped my iPhone 4S in the toilet this week and Googled what to do. And I just want to let everybody know that throwing the phone, drying it off, taking the case off, drying it off, and putting it for 24 hours in the bag of rice worked. When I took it out, texting worked, phone calls. Immediately the phone call could not work. I could take calls, but they could not hear me talking, and gave it another day, not in the rice, but just using it just with text. And then I could, now people can hear me when I'm talking on the phone. So, phone salvaged with a bag of rice.
We should say at that point, you don't have to cook the rice and eat it. You can just throw the rice out.
Which I did. Thank you, Chris.
If you put your phone in rubbing alcohol, it will displace the water. And then when you take the phone out, rubbing alcohol evaporates very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah.
Mineral oil is also, it's often used for cooling electronics. So a lot of people that have overclocked computers will actually take the entire motherboard and they'll put it in mineral oil because it's not conductive. And you can do something with that too. So it's liquids that won't necessarily cause anything to short out. But I've heard the rubbing alcohol also works, and you just need to make sure it displaces all of the water.
I would be so scared to dip it in more water. Like, what would you pour rubbing alcohol into a bowl and then submerge it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not water. That's the thing. It's alcohol. So it's, and then if you've had alcohol, you've probably seen how fast it can evaporate, and that's really the kind of the whole key to it. It's just make sure that it displaces all of the water that's in the phone currently, so it all gets out. All right then. Let's start to wrap things up. Chris, what's new on the Amateur Traveler this week?
We have an episode that just went out yesterday on Lisbon, Portugal.
Okay. Jen, where can people find you online?
Well, you could have found me online this past week. My Kids and Trips did a charity Twitter party for Passports with Purpose. And so we were raising awareness for that charity, which we talked about on our last show. Just wanted to remind people that you can still donate to Passports with Purpose through their auction. until Wednesday, December 17th.
So you're recommending for
Find
people
me-
with time machines to go back and join the Twitter party?
Yes, you can join that Twitter party archived at #KidsAndTrips, but you know me, I'm on Twitter at @JenLeo, and my column comes out every week at the travel section of the LA Times.
Do you have any upcoming Twitter events?
Do I have any upcoming
Yes or
Twitter
no?
events?
Yeah.
Not till January. No,
For
nothing.
those of us without time machines.
Yes.
And Paul, where can people listen to On Travel?
It's a podcast pretty
about
much
those
every
three?
day at ontravel.com, www.ontravel.com, and you can hear us in 180 different countries three times a day now, 5 days a week at the American Forces Radio Network, in, I guess, wherever you have access to that.
And for those of you that just can't get enough Gary, I appear roughly, I don't know, every
For both
2
of
weeks
you,
maybe.
can't get enough Gary.
So yeah, I appear regularly on Travel, and we talk about, I don't know, whatever I'm doing at the time, and it's a great show.
Well, and thank you, Gary. And yes, this afternoon you'll be able to log on to ontravel.com, and there will be Gary Arndt from Girona, Catalonia. We have to say Catalonia because it is not Spain, it is Catalonia, and home to the world's best restaurants.
Yeah, I should note that when you're here, I have yet to see a single Spanish flag here, any of the villages I've been to, or in Barcelona. And you will see Catalonian flags everywhere. Every balcony, every house seems to have a Catalonian flag. So they let you know. As usual, you can find me at everything-everywhere.com or on the Instagram at everythingeverywhere and all major social media platforms. And until next time, get out of the house and don't make too much noise in your hotel room such that you bother the people next to you.